You've heard this story 100 times. A college dropout with nothing but an idea. He crashes on a friend's couch because he can't afford rent. He walks into investor meetings carrying a dream and walks out carrying another rejection. Again and again. Until one day, everything changes. 10 years later, he's a billionaire. The headlines call him a visionary. Netflix turns his journey into a documentary. His story spreads across LinkedIn, layered over a photo of a sunset with the same familiar caption, "Never give up." We love stories like this because they make us believe that success is inevitable for those who refuse to quit. But there's another story. Actually, there are thousands of them. For every founder whose name the world remembers, there were probably 10,000 others who took the exact same leap. They dropped out of college. They slept on friends' couches. They built products no one wanted. They pitched the same investors. They heard the same no. The only difference, they never got the ending the cameras were waiting for. No documentaries, no viral interviews, no inspirational posts. Their stories disappeared the moment they failed. That's what I want to talk about today. The gap between the one story you hear and the 10,000 you don't. That gap has a name: survivorship bias. And it might be the most dangerous illusion hiding inside every "How I Built a Billion-Dollar Company" video you've ever watched. Let me take you back to World War II for a second, because this is actually where the idea got its name. The US military had a problem. Their bombers kept getting shot down over Europe, and they needed to figure out where to add armor. But there was a problem. Armor is heavy, though. Cover the entire plane, and it won't stay in the air. So they had to be smart about where it went. They studied the bombers that returned from battle, as every bullet hole was carefully mapped. And after enough planes came home, a pattern emerged. The wings were riddled with bullets. The tail was covered in damage. The fuselage had taken countless hits. But the engines? The engines were almost untouched. The conclusion seemed obvious. That's where we should add the armor. Protect the wings, the tail, and the body. Problem solved. Except, there was one man in the room who looked at the exact same evidence and reached the exact opposite conclusion. His name was Abraham Wald, a mathematician, and he asked a question that no one else had thought to ask. Where are the planes that never came back? Everyone had been studying the survivors, but nobody was looking at the planes that had disappeared forever. Because, of course, they couldn't. Then Wald realized something profound. The bullet holes weren't showing where planes were most vulnerable. They were showing where planes could be hit and still make it home. A bomber could lose chunks of its wings. It could limp back with a shredded tail. It could survive holes torn through its fuselage. But if a single bullet ripped through the engine, that plane never returned. It crashed somewhere over the ocean. And because it never came back, it never appeared in the data. The most dangerous part of the airplane wasn't missing because it was safe. It was missing because every plane hit there had already been erased from the sample. So, that single realization changed everything. Instead of reinforcing the places covered with bullet holes, the military armored the places where there were almost none. It saved countless aircraft. And more importantly, it revealed a mistake that humans still make every single day. We instinctively learn from the stories that survive, while forgetting to ask about the ones that never had the chance to be told. And once you see that pattern, you start noticing it everywhere. In business, in investing, in careers, and in almost every "here's how I became successful" video on the internet. Now think about what that means today. Every time you watch a video about someone who became a millionaire trading options, or built a fortune flipping houses, or quit their 9-to-5 to start an online business, you're looking at a plane that made it home. You're seeing the story that survived. What you don't see are the thousands of people who took the very same leap, with the exact same amount of guts, and just didn't make it. They never became a case study. No one invited them onto a podcast. No publisher asked them to write a book. Instead, they quietly went back to ordinary jobs. Some with empty savings accounts, some carrying debt, some carrying something even heavier, the quiet feeling that maybe they had failed. That's how survivorship bias tricks us. But honestly, it doesn't lie. You've probably heard the formula before. Wake up at 5 a.m., take cold showers, read 50 books a year, meditate, journal, exercise before sunrise, etc. The list goes on. And it's easy to believe those habits are the secret. After all, every billionaire seems to swear by them. But here's the question almost nobody asks. How many millions of people also wake up at 5 every morning, take cold showers, read dozens of books every year, work incredibly hard, and never become billionaires? Well, it's probably far more than the ones who do. No one's writing that book. Not because those people don't exist, but because failure rarely becomes a bestseller. Success does. And when the only stories we hear come from the winners, we begin to mistake correlation for causation. We assume their habits created their success, when in reality, those may simply be the habits of everyone who tried. The only difference is, the winners were the ones whose stories survived long enough for us to hear them. So why do we fall for this? Over and over again. Why is it so easy to believe the survivor story, while forgetting the thousands we never hear? Well, there are two reasons. The first is surprisingly simple. Failure is quiet. When someone's business collapses, they don't make a YouTube video called "How I Lost Everything." They don't celebrate it on LinkedIn or go on podcasts to tell the world what went wrong. Most of the time, they quietly update their resume, find another job, and move on. Failure rarely asks to be seen, but success can't wait to be. But there's another reason, and this one is buried deep inside the way our brains work. Humans don't naturally think in probabilities. We think in stories. Just imagine if someone hands you a spreadsheet. It says that 90% of new restaurants fail within 5 years. It's probably one of the most important numbers you should know before opening a restaurant. But let's be honest, it doesn't make you feel anything. Now compare that to a documentary about a struggling chef who builds a world-famous restaurant from nothing. Suddenly, you're inspired. You believe. You think, if they did it, maybe I can too. The strange thing is, the spreadsheet is telling you the truth about your odds. But the story is the one your brain remembers. Because a face is easier to remember than a percentage. A single hero is more powerful than 1,000 anonymous failures. And that's why stories so often shape our beliefs, even when the statistics tell a completely different story. So here's the mindset shift that can change the way you make decisions. Stop asking, what did the winner do? Start asking, what happened to everyone else who tried? Don't just look at the trophy case. Go looking for the graveyard. If you're about to quit your job, invest your savings, or copy someone else's blueprint for success, don't study only the people who made it. Also find the ones who didn't. They're much harder to find, but they exist. And together, they will tell you a far more honest story. Learn from them and draw lessons from their experiences. Maybe that's when you will know what to do next. Then there's one more lesson that's even harder to accept. Don't judge your decisions only by how they turned out. Judge them by whether they were good decisions at the moment you made them, based on what you knew then. Because sometimes, bad decisions get lucky. And sometimes, the great decision still ends in failure. If you only learn from the survivors, you'll never know the difference between good judgment and good luck. So next time you watch one of those How I Made It videos, including, honestly, some of the ones on this channel, remember, you're looking at a plane that made it home. Ask yourself what you're not seeing behind the curtains, because the story that survives is never the whole story. It's just simply the one that lived long enough to be told. In the end, if this somehow shifted how you look at your feed, hit subscribe, okay? And before you go, do one more thing for me. Please drop a comment with a sure thing you almost fell for. Not to feel dumb about it, because somewhere, somebody's about to make the same bet you almost made. And your comment might be the black box that saves them from the crash. Don't you agree? Then I will see you in the next one.